The morning of July 4th, 2026, began not with a call for national unity, but with a digital volley from the 47th president. As the sun rose over the Potomac, Donald Trump took to Truth Social to redefine the political lexicon once again. For months, the administration has been pivoting toward a more aggressive stance ahead of the midterms, and this holiday morning was the perfect stage for his latest branding effort. The rhetoric wasn't just a casual remark, it was a calculated attempt to frame the opposition as inherently miserable, setting the tone for a day that would be filled with both patriotic fervor and intense partisan friction. Trump's choice of the word Democrat is more than a simple typo or a childish jab. It is a tactical linguistic tool designed to delegitimize the Democratic Party in the eyes of his base. By signing the post, President Donald J. Trump, he reinforces his authority while simultaneously engaging in the kind of street-level political brawling that defined his return to power. This insult specifically targets the morale of his opponents, suggesting that their ideology is synonymous with a lack of joy. It's a theme he has returned to frequently as the economic divide in the country sharpens, attempting to paint his critics as elite crybabies who cannot appreciate the state of the union. In the middle of the night, before the official holiday greetings, the president targeted individual lawmakers with visual mockery. He shared a side-by-side comparison of Georgia Senator John Ossoff and the late comedic character Pee Wee Herman. This wasn't a policy critique, but a direct strike at Ossoff's public persona and appearance. Ossoff, who has been a vocal critic of the administration's fiscal policies in 2026, found himself the subject of a meme-style attack that quickly went viral. This tactic is a hallmark of the Trump era, using pop culture archetypes to diminish the stature of serious political figures, turning a U.S. senator into a caricature for his millions of followers. The visual offensive continued with James Talarico, the Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate in Texas. Trump shared an edited image of Talarico, digitally altered to appear as if he were missing teeth, placed next to Alfred E. Newman, the gap-toothed mascot of Mad Magazine. Talarico has been gaining traction in the polls by focusing on education and healthcare, but the president's attack focused entirely on a distorted version of his physical image. This Mad Magazine comparison is a recurring trope for Trump, previously used against Pete Buttigieg, but the digital alteration of Talarico's face marks a more aggressive use of manipulated media to humiliate a political challenger during an election year. As the day progressed, the reality of a record-breaking 2026 heat wave forced the cancellation of the traditional 4th of July parade in Washington, D.C. Temperatures soared past 100 degrees, creating a public safety hazard. Despite the official cancellation, the president downplayed the severity of the weather, claiming the heat isn't as bad as predicted. This divergence between official safety warnings and the president's public statements highlighted the ongoing tension between the administration and scientific or logistical expertise. For the thousands of tourists who had traveled to the Capitol, the day became a test of endurance under a punishing sun. Ignoring the parade's cancellation, Trump took to his platform to praise the incredible crowds in D.C., stating that the love of our country has never been stronger. To the president, the sheer volume of people who braved the heat was a testament to his own popularity and the resilience of the American spirit. While these scheduled events were limited, his supporters gathered in large numbers near the monuments, many wearing MAGA apparel and carrying flags. This scene served as a counter-narrative to the idea of a stifled holiday, framing the day as a triumph of patriotism over environmental obstacles and administrative setbacks.
Earlier on Friday, a different kind of news broke. Trump announced he had signed pardons for 6 individuals he claimed were persecuted by the previous Biden administration. Curiously, he did not initially name the recipients, describing them only as people who were in prison for fixing their car. This vague phrasing sparked immediate speculation and confusion. Was this a reference to minor regulatory infractions or something more significant? By framing the judicial actions as an act of great honor and a rescue mission against political persecution, Trump once again positioned himself as the ultimate arbiter of justice, overriding the standard legal processes.
When the official list was finally released by the White House, the truth behind fixing their car became clear. 9 of the 11 pardoned individuals were convicted of violating the Clean Air Act. These weren't simple hobbyists. They were people who had systematically disabled emissions monitoring systems on vehicles or sold devices to bypass these systems. These defeat devices allow vehicles to emit significantly more pollutants than allowed by law. Trump's pardons effectively signaled a full-scale retreat from environmental enforcement, rewarding those who had profited from circumventing federal air quality standards in the name of regulatory relief. The pardons were accompanied by a significant policy shift. Trump signed a memo to the Environmental Protection Agency stating that Americans have the right to fix their own vehicles as they see fit. This move was designed to supersede the California Air Resources Board's ability to evaluate and regulate aftermarket auto parts. While framed as a win for the right to repair movement, critics argue it is a thinly veiled attempt to dismantle California's unique authority to set stricter emission standards. This battle over auto parts and air quality is a central pillar of Trump's 2026 deregulatory agenda, targeting the heart of environmental federalism.
Perhaps the most politically charged pardon was for Adam Kidan, a former business partner of the infamous lobbyist Jack Abramoff. Kidan had pleaded guilty in 2005 to fraud and conspiracy related to a fleet of gambling boats. His past was tied to one of the biggest lobbying scandals in U.S. history. In 2026, Kidan is a successful businessman and a host of fundraisers at Mar-a-Lago. The pardon of a wealthy donor and former felon with deep ties to GOP power players raised immediate questions about pay-to-play politics. It signaled that in the 2026 administration, loyalty and proximity to the president's inner circle are potent paths to legal absolution.
Another notable pardon was granted to ranch owner Jack Harvard. Trump cited Harvard's upstanding record and praised him for allowing U.S. military and NATO troops to train on his land free of charge. This pardon highlights a specific type of patriotic service that Trump values, private citizens providing resources to the military. While the details of Harvard's conviction remain sparse, the public justification focused entirely on his cooperation with the armed forces. It's a move that appeals to Trump's base of land-owning veterans and rural supporters, framing the pardon as a reward for traditional American service and hospitality to the troops.
The holiday weekend truly kicked off on the evening of July 3rd at the Mount Rushmore National Memorial. Trump arrived in South Dakota to a backdrop of the 4 great presidents carved into the granite. The setting was intentionally grand, designed to evoke a sense of historical destiny. As he stepped off Air Force One, the president was greeted by a crowd of supporters who had traveled from across the Midwest. This visit was the centerpiece of his July 4th campaign, using the majesty of the Black Hills to frame his administration as the true heir to the American legacy, even as his rhetoric grew increasingly divisive.
During his speech at Mount Rushmore, Trump leaned heavily into Red Scare tactics, a strategy he has used with increasing frequency as his approval ratings have dipped. He repeatedly labeled his political opponents as communists, a term he now applies to almost anyone who disagrees with his policies. This linguistic shift is an attempt to drum up fear and urgency among his base, framing the 2026 midterms not as a choice between two parties, but as a battle for the survival of the nation against a foreign ideology. To Trump, communism has become a catch-all term for environmental regulation, social justice initiatives, and even traditional news reporting. The most controversial line of the speech came when Trump railed against what he called a band of thieves, radicals, and lunatics. He claimed that American ancestors did not shed their blood at Gettysburg or Normandy just to have the nation looted and pillaged by his current opponents. This high-octane rhetoric was designed to trigger a deep emotional response, linking his political rivals to the destruction of American history. However, the choice of words, looting and pillaging, immediately backfired, as critics pointed to the president's own massive financial gains since returning to the White House. Critics were quick to point out the irony of Trump's looting comments. Financial filings recently revealed that the president earned more than $2 billion last year alone. This massive windfall has raised ethical questions about how much the president is profiting from his office. While he rails against a band of thieves, the Wall Street Journal editorial board accused him and his family of profiting off the presidency in ways that demean the office. The contrast between his populist rhetoric and his personal billionaire status has become a central point of attack for the very Democrats he mocks on social media. A significant portion of Trump's wealth, over $1 billion, came from his crypto businesses. While the president pocketed these gains, the New York Times reported that over 764,000 other crypto wallets associated with his ventures suffered massive losses. This crypto king persona has become a double-edged sword. While it proves his business acumen to his followers, it also paints a picture of a leader whose personal profit comes at the expense of his own supporters' savings. The volatility of the 2026 crypto market has left many of his ancestors' descendants struggling, while the president's own coffers remain full. The controversy doesn't stop at crypto. There are growing allegations that the Trump family has struck gold by buying stocks in companies just before the administration announces favorable decisions. This suggests a pattern of potential insider trading or at least a severe conflict of interest. The Wall Street Journal described the Trump clan as cashing in on the presidency in big and sketchy ways. For a president who frames himself as a champion for the working man, these high-level financial maneuvers provide a stark contrast to the daily struggles of Americans facing a spike in the inflation rate.
Perhaps the most baffling comment from the president came last month when he insisted, "I love the inflation." While most Americans are struggling with the rising cost of groceries and fuel, Trump's dismissive attitude toward inflation has become a major liability. He has tried to ignore the economic reality facing millions, even as his own wealth grows through investments that hedge against currency devaluation. This comment has been used by his critics to paint him as out of touch, a billionaire who sees a national economic crisis as just another market opportunity to be exploited, rather than a problem to be solved.
The backlash to the Mount Rushmore speech and the July 4th insults was swift on social media. Critics used his own words against him, asking who is pillaging what now, as they shared news of his financial gains. This public outcry comes at a critical time. With the November midterm elections approaching, Trump's approval ratings are in a deep plunge. There is an increasing likelihood that his party will lose control of the House and possibly the Senate. The Red Scare tactics and the personal insults are a desperate attempt to shore up a fracturing base. But for many, the on-the-nose irony of his rhetoric has become impossible to ignore. As the fireworks finally lit up the sky over Washington and Mount Rushmore, the 250th anniversary of the United States concluded with a nation more divided than ever. The president's holiday was a masterclass in his unique style of leadership, part populist hero, part billionaire tycoon, and part digital provocateur. Whether his tactics of Democrat insults and strategic pardons will save his party in the midterms remains to be seen. What is clear is that the truth in 2026 is often buried under layers of rhetoric, profit, and spectacle. If you found this story insightful, please like, share, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to support our journey into the truth.